Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We have an inside the box today of something that has just arrived, in which I've had my eye on for quite some time because I am specifically interested in this subject. This is, and it's kind of in pieces, so we're going to take a look at components and scenarios in that. This is Atlantic Wall. This is a Joe Belkowski design from 1978. Joe is, of course, an renowned expert on the topic of the Normandy invasion. So I was super interested to get a handle on this. Now, this is quite a different game from the Goss Atlantic Wall that is currently in print and available from Decision Games. But nevertheless, and the scope is different here, right? This is a 5-map game. The Goss game's like a 7-map game. The Goss game covers into August of 1944. This only goes, I think, to the end of June. But I want to see how this much earlier design influenced the Goss series, and since I'm interested in this topic anyway, this is the one that I went after. So let's take a look, first of all, at some of the insides. Now, this particular copy was punched, but I did get it for a really, really good price. So we can see here that we've got some counters in the American color, the SSR in black. I'm not sure who these greenish guys are. Free French, maybe? Canadians, maybe? I don't think they're Free French. I don't think Free French are present in these numbers inside of June. And then most of this tray is the British. I think this is complete, but I am, of course, going to double check it. It kind of just arrived. And I'm not going to show you all the counters because I can't show you the unpunched sheets. Now, this is, I will also point out, the SPI 4-inch soapbox version. Not 100% sure that this particular game was released in a flat tray. Most of these soapboxes were, but there's a couple that weren't. Campaign for North Africa, for example, was definitely not released in the tray. So we got a rule book and a scenario book, and these are a little bit beat up, but I don't care too much. The maps are in good shape, and the counters look, at a glance, look like they're well cared for. So rule book is, bear in mind, this is 1978, right? Is 36 pages, really 35. So really 33 of rules, but the type is, the typesetting here is the standard, quite dense SPI 3-column format with very small print. There are some designers and developers notes here. Who was the developer on this, actually? Developer by Stephen Ross. Okay, and co-development by Joe Belkowski, or Jay Belkowski. That's the same person, right? I don't know. Physical systems and design by Redmond Simonson, of course. So not a simple game just because it was released in 1978, right? So let's take a quick look at the map, since I make much hubbub about Redmond Simonson graphics. This is another one of those things. This is the Cotentin Peninsula here. The scale, for those who are curious, is 1 kilometer per hex, which is quite a bit smaller than the Goss standard scale, which is 1 mile per hex, which is perhaps why the Cotentin and Cherbourg in particular takes up so many hexes on this map. As you can see, there's a lot of what I take. I have not looked at the TEC at all, but I take these hexes to be bocage. Of course, you have the big city of Cherbourg over here and some scattered woods throughout. I do find it interesting that the text orientation is in a variety of different directions. On the one hand, you have this stuff, which is oriented as if you were sitting that way. You have this stuff, which is oriented as if you were sitting that way. The displays are oriented as if you were sitting that way, and there's a mulberry table that is oriented as though you were sitting that way. So that gets to be complicated. I mean, this is a large footprint game, right? So it's you have to have a lot of space. Now, the good news is, and this is actually why I'm doing a video on this, is that there are a good number of single map scenarios. Now, this is map E. We also have maps A, C, D, and B. As you could see, I think the maps looks like, not sure what's up with this, if this just represents the southern edge of the map. That's plausible. But the maps appear to be in pretty good shape. I'm not convinced this was, you're looking at the maps, and maybe like the counters too, even though they're punched, I'm not sure that the game was played, but the rulebooks look thoroughly thumbed through, so maybe it has been. So we have a very ancient, on typewriter paper, Atlantic Wall errata sheet here, which presumably looks like it's from the 70s. We have these two charts and tables sheets, which may have come out of one of the books. I don't know. They're just on like regular paper. I would be strongly inclined to scan, recopy these, and put new versions of them into laminated pouches. So let's take a quick look at the scenarios. You know, we're going to probably call this Grail Games on the title card, but I don't know that I'd consider this a Grail game. I can tell you that the Goss Atlantic Wall was for a long time, and the Battle for Normandy was the GMT Dan Holt game. I'm fortunate enough to have those. And like I said, though, this is a Grail topic for me in that I'm very interested in games, in detailed hex encounter games on this subject. And this is a battalion level game, by the way. The units represent battalions. All right, so scenarios. Good historical notes on each one. Initial deployments. Quite a lot going on. This is map E, which is the Cherbourg map. The Calmont Gap, or Calmont Gap, I don't know. Only map C. Operation Epsom. This is probably map C as well, maybe. This is only map D. And then here we have Bloody Omaha. This is only map C. And this is the scenario that specifically does interest me, assuming that it includes the American landings, which I believe to be the case. And then we have a Gold Juno Sword, which is only map D. Oh, and Book Fallen Apart is what we got here. Make sure we got, yeah, it looks good. Though we're not missing pages, is what I'm specifically looking for. Here's Utah Beach, which is only map B. So, and then here is the campaign game, which is, I'm sure, going to be all the maps. But there's an ample number of single map scenarios in this. Now, despite the, 32 pages of rules, which sounds about right, relative high density as far as 70s SPI titles go, this is nevertheless a ton simpler than the Goss Atlantic Wall, and therefore maybe represents an alternative for people who kind of like a simpler game, but nevertheless want big scope. Now, there are newer, simpler games on this topic. This is not a rare topic for war games. There are newer, simpler games on this topic. One that springs to mind immediately is Day of Days, the SCS game from MMP. But I don't like Day of Days. I think it's my least favorite SCS game for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to bother going into here. Even though I like the SCS system in general, and there are a number of SCS games that I do like, but as far as games on similar scale, that's one that is currently available. Of course, Atlantic Wall, but that's about 2 orders of magnitude more complicated than this. The classic The Longest Day from Avalon Hill, which I know a lot of people have fond memories of, but I consider very dated, and there are production reasons why I feel people should not be going after The Longest Day nowadays. One is that if you get a shrink-wrapped copy, they had problems with map collation, so you're likely to have an incomplete or mis-selected set of maps, and you cannot call Avalon Hill to get that fixed anymore. Another is the counter symbols, which uses the historical counter symbols. There are game systems where you can get away with that. I don't believe that The Longest Day is one of them. I believe it is merely a distraction. It has a number of variant uncommon counter shapes, which I consider, again, a distraction. And the whole thing is I think, just dated. I know there's folks that disagree with that, who still think it's one of the best D-Day games, at least at a similar scale. I just simply don't agree. So there's plenty of other alternatives, either at big scale, battalion scale like this, or at a more common regimental or division-ish level that you can look at right now. One, it would be Normandy 44, a new printing of which has just shipped from, or started shipping, or is about to start shipping from GMT. That is a game I highly recommend. There are videos about it on the channel. Please do check those out if you are interested in a one-sitting Normandy game that gives you a really good sense of the campaign. It's a long sitting, don't get me wrong, but you can play it in one day. with not too much trouble. We have what looks like a nice condition copy. The box is in good shape too, right? These boxes have tended to historically not wear particularly well. They tended to have blown corners, in part because these aren't glued corners, right? These are, and these issues with the box wrap is a problem too. But it's this cover wrap on the box. It's like a wallpaper coating the box is the only thing holding this box together. This was very common in 1970s boxes in general, let alone wargame boxes. And it is one of the reasons why, other than age, which is probably the most important reason, why these things have tended not to wear particularly well. And sometimes copies that were originally bought in the shrink wrap have now migrated their way into flat trays because the box has been destroyed. So I am glad to have this that will sit on my shelf along with my other 2 SPI soapbox games. So thanks for watching very much. Hopefully we will beat this into shape in editing, and I hope that you will subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to help support Ardwulf's Lair, please do check out the links in the video description to the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. Until next time, thanks for watching, and happy wargaming!